You're watching Focus on Africa. Let's find out what's happening in the world of sport. And Peter, with the World Cup just 4 months away, African teams are stepping up their preparations.
Absolutely, Kenya. That's right, Sophie, that's right. It's been announced that both Nigeria and Ivory Coast will play a series of matches in the United States ahead of June's finals in Brazil. Organized by the Major League Soccer, the two African nations will be joined at the warm-up event by fellow qualifiers Bosnia-Herzegovina, Greece, Honduras and reigning world champions Spain, among others. The two-week event will finish on June 10th, 2 days before the World Cup begins in Brazil. Now, nearly 40 years ago, Lorna Kiplagat was born in the Rift Valley in Kenya, and while the long-distance specialist chose to compete for the Netherlands in 2003, she has never forgotten her homeland. This week, she opened the Lorna Kiplagat Sports Academy in Iten, which now boasts the first all-weather athletics track outside Nairobi. British duo Paula Radcliffe, seen here dancing with Olympic steeplechase champion Ezekiel Kemboi, and Mo Farah were in attendance largely because the track was built in partnership with organizers of the London Marathon. And after cutting the tape and testing the surface, Radcliffe said she thinks the track will make Iten an even more popular training destination for the world's best distance runners.
You already have amazing environment for training with the altitude, with the trails, and just with the understanding of distance running that the community of Iten has. And now to have this track here, I think that really puts the icing on the cake in terms of people being able to come here and prepare.
Now, the draw for this year's Basketball World Cup took place in host nation Spain overnight. 3 African nations are taking part, with Egypt having been drawn against the hosts themselves in Group A, along with European champions France. Senegal are also part of August finals, and they've been pooled against Argentina and Greece in their 16th group. Angola are Africa's final competitor, and they are up against Lithuania and Australia, amongst others, in Group D. Let's switch sports again, as Zimbabwe's cricketers trained today for the first time in nearly 2 months, having been on strike in a row over unpaid wages. The players ended their boycott after being promised money by next Monday at the latest. And how about some Zimbabwe rather were due to compete at next month's World Cup 2020 championships in Bangladesh. Now, this is where I wanted to get to. The troubled build-up to the Winter Olympics has continued, with further worrying news from Sochi coming just before the Games begin. Austrian officials have confirmed receipt of an anonymous letter threatening the kidnap of 2 of its competitors.
There was an anonymous letter sent to the Olympic Committee yesterday. This anonymous letter was immediately forwarded to the Austrian Ministry of the Interior, and investigation is going on now.
Now, how about a little kite surfing from South Africa? For the 2nd year in a row, Cape Town's Big Bay played host to 24 of the world's best kiteboarders as they went head-to-head in the King of the Air competition. The surfers were judged on the height, creativity and style of their maneuvers, and it all came down to the final, in which Dutchman Kevin Langery managed to edge out his rivals and emerge champion in front of a 12,000-strong crowd. Amazing stuff.
Peter, but you have been amazing, because that supposedly is you.
Well, yeah, those are my feet. And I tell you what, you know how on Focus on Africa we like to have some pretty bizarre stories? Well, I heard about one very, very strange sport being played across many cities across the world, and I went to check it out.
Now, it's not every day that I strip off to do a piece for the BBC, but I've had to do just that today because I'm here to witness a very, very unusual sport. Now, I only heard about it a few weeks ago and didn't even believe that anyone played it. I'm here to take part in the sport of underwater rugby. First, I need to put on the rest of my kit.
As a sport, it's one of the strangest I've ever seen, and believe me, I've seen quite a few. Underwater rugby involves 2 teams seeking to gain control of a slightly negatively buoyant ball and passing it into a heavy metal bucket at the bottom of the swimming pool. It originated in German diving clubs during the early 1960s, but in all honesty, has very little in common with rugby football, except of course for the name.
It was my first time ever to swim with a snorkel and flippers, and I was struggling to keep up. So I decided to get one of the players to the shallower end of the pool to tell me more about this sport.
Hey, Peter.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
that's the most difficult thing I've ever done before.
Really?
I think I touched the ball once.
Well, I'm sure you managed more than once.
Rob, tell us a little bit about underwater rugby. What's it all about?
It's similar to rugby. You keep it protected, keep the ball protected. It's a contact sport, so you'll be tackling each other, but you won't tackle above the neck, same as in rugby, and you won't interfere with the other guy's flippers because that just ruins the game, yeah? Possibilities are almost endless, Peter, as you experience.
Fantastic stuff, Rob. Thank you very much for teaching me underwater rugby.
I'm glad you came along and enjoyed it.
I am Peter Okwoche, underwater rugby player, BBC News.
He did try, didn't he? I've been craning my neck looking for him underwater. Well, before we go, let me remind you of our top story on Stories and Focus on Africa. 20 years since the Rwandan genocide, the first ever trial in France has started. Rwanda's former intelligence chief, Pascal Simbikangwa, is facing charges over his alleged involvement in the massacres. And it's emerged that at least 20 of more than 100 people arrested for rioting in Mombasa are children, some as young as 12. The government maintains that they will all have to face the law. And that's all from the program. From me, Sophie Ikenye, and the rest of the team, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.